Okay, guys, I'm gonna contradict myself quite a bit here. If you actually go back and watch the last video I posted, which was the last podcast I did, I talked a lot about the Andy Dalton signing there, and it was pretty much a knee-jerk reaction. It was a very quick reaction that I had, and it was quite negative, talking about the Andy Dalton signing. But over the last week, with some perspective, actually going back and watching some Andy Dalton games from last year, and also thinking just logically about what the other plan Bs would have been for the Bears, I have to be honest, lads, I've done a complete 180 on the Andy Dalton signing. I'm much more positive about it now than I was last week, and I have to be honest, I completely understand now why the Bears went after Andy Dalton, and I agree with the signing now, and I'm going to explain why. I know that's a really unpopular opinion in Bears land right now, and I understand that there's still fans that are so pissed off about it, but I want to at least explain why I'm actually quite positive about it now. And again, I understand why the Bears did it. So the reason I was so annoyed at the start when we got Andy Dalton, it wasn't necessarily because we didn't get Russell Wilson. It was because I didn't understand how Andy Dalton could be your logical plan B. Because in my opinion, I was like, okay, there's better quarterbacks that we could have went after. To a certain extent, that's true. But I want to go through all the other plan Bs, the possible plan Bs the Bears could have went after if we didn't get Russell Wilson. And let's see none of these actually make more sense than what the Bears did signing Andy Dalton. So let's go through them. These are the possible plan Bs for the Bears, right? Outside of Andy Dalton. We're not getting Deshaun Watson, so let's just throw that dream away. Derek Carr is a guy who I talked about a lot. Derek Carr was pretty damn good last year, man. He was really good. Fact of the matter is, Vegas seems like they want to keep hold of him now. Could you get Derek Carr away from Las Vegas? Yeah, you probably could, but you'd have to give up quite a lot to do it because they seem like they kind of want to keep him right now. You'd have to give up so much capital. You'd have to overpay for Derek Carr, basically, especially if you're the Bears, a team who's desperate to get a quarterback. So, selling the farm for Derek Carr, is that really a winning formula? Probably not. If you're giving Derek Carr a team that you've sold loads of assets for him, do you really think you're going to win anything with Derek Carr? No. So, I don't think that's a viable option. All right, who else? Matt Ryan, you're not getting him. You're not getting him from Atlanta. Atlanta are running it back again with that offense. They want to go again with that. He's not available. You're not getting him. All right, fair enough. You're not getting Matt Ryan. Who else? Sam Darnold. No. The very first video I put up on this channel was about how the Bears can't feasibly go after somebody like a Sam Darnold. It can't be a broken quarterback or reclamation project. It just can't happen. That's not a viable option. Who else? The draft. I'll tell you why the draft doesn't necessarily make sense. Because with a rookie quarterback, lads, you have to wait for them to develop. You actually have to give them time to develop. Especially a quarterback that's the third or fourth quarterback coming off the board. So even if the Bears traded up to draft a quarterback, that's not a win now move. You can't rely on a rookie quarterback to come in and win now. And with this defense, you've got a very limited window, lads. In 3 or 4 years, this defense is going to be old. You need to compete now. A rookie quarterback does not make sense. That's not going to happen. Could we draft a rookie quarterback? I don't know, maybe. But it's not a starter that's going to win now. It doesn't make sense. It's not going to happen that way. Who are the other plan Bs that we could have went after? I can't think of anybody. Come on, lads. Like, Jameis, that's a fun thing to think about, but really, that would have been a disaster if we got Jameis, right? He's the ultimate feast or famine quarterback, and once he has a game where he throws 4 picks, the whole fan base is going to be up in flames. Like, we don't actually want Jameis, do we? Like, let's be honest here. So when you think about the other logical plan Bs, I don't see one option that was better than Andy Dalton. Also, the thing to consider is we didn't give up anything to get him. It's a 1-year deal, and we didn't give up any picks, to get him. With a lot of those other options that I just said there, you would have had to give up capital to get them. Okay, so the first thing is I don't see what the other logical plan B would have been. Thinking about it with a bit of perspective, I really don't see what the other logical plan Bs would have been. Past that, when you look back at Andy Dalton's career, I think a lot of us are underrating how good Andy Dalton can be. He played with some fucking dog offensive lines. I mean, some bad offensive lines in Cincinnati. And look, Andy Dalton, you know, he's not a great quarterback. He's had some bad games, but he's had some really good ones too. And you look at the situation that he was thrown in last year, that situation was terrible. And I'm so sick of people saying things like, look at the weapons and the team he had around him last year. Mate, that team was 1-3 with Dak as a starter. They were 1-3, right? Yeah, it was week 5 he went down. They were 1-3 with Dak as a starter. Dak was a quarterback that we all love, we all agree is great. They were 1-3 with him as a starter. That defense was an absolute sieve last year. The offensive line was playing like absolute fucking ass. Ezekiel Elliott fell off a cliff for the majority of last year. So don't give me, look at that great running back he has. What great running back? There was games where he dropped 3 or 4 passes in a row. Ezekiel Elliott was ass through a lot of last year. And also, it was a terrible situation culture-wise. Remember the whole narrative last year about how it was the coach's fault in Dallas? The players literally hated the coaches in Dallas last year. And it was pretty much the point where Andy Dalton was asked to be the starter, was when all this shit was hitting the fan about how the players absolutely hate the coaches and it's all the coach's fault. So that team that was 1-3, that had serious holes and the players hated the coaches. What? Andy Dalton was supposed to go in there and fucking win loads of games and bring them to the playoffs. Are you drunk? How is that Andy Dalton's fault? I'm so sick of people blaming last year on Andy Dalton and saying that, look, Andy Dalton's not that good. Look at what he did last year. That was a terrible situation. Just about any quarterback in the NFL, wouldn't have looked great in that situation, to be honest. Look, I'm not saying Andy Dalton's amazing. He's not. He's not a game-breaking quarterback. But what he is competent, right? He's a guy that through his career has actually proven that he can move the ball down the field through the air. He can actually move the chains with the air. He can actually move the chains through the air. And I know this is a mad concept to us Bears fans, but he's a guy that can actually hit a wide open receiver. When a receiver comes open, he can actually hit the target. Yeah, he can read defenses to a fucking respectable level. He's an average quarterback. And that brings me on to the last point. Bears fans, for so long through the Trubisky and Foles run, we've all said this. We've all said, man, we don't even need an amazing quarterback. All we need is a competent quarterback. If we could just get competent passing attack, we would compete. Okay. Now all of a sudden we have a competent quarterback and we're all, throwing our arms up like this is the worst thing ever. What? Again, I think a lot of it is people just expected that we were going to get Russell Wilson. And obviously it's a bit of a kick in the balls when you expect somebody of Russell Wilson's level. When you get anyone less than that, it's a bit of a kick in the balls. I understand it. Final statement here. Again, we've said for ages that all we need is a competent quarterback to compete with this defense. Think back to last offseason, 2020, when we signed Nick Foles. If we signed Andy Dalton back then, how happy would you have been? Right? Last offseason, we didn't expect anyone like Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. We didn't expect any of these, crazy great quarterbacks. We just wanted someone who was competent. If we got Andy Dalton back then, you best believe the entire Bears fan base would have been so happy about it. It gives you a bit of perspective, doesn't it? I don't understand why everyone's so pissed off about it. I really don't. He's a competent quarterback. He's had some pretty fucking good games with some bad teams, man. And look, he gives us the chance to at least open up the playbook a bit and have a fucking competent offense. We're giving him weapons. I don't know why people think our weapons aren't good. Allen Robinson's number 1 wide receiver. We have Darnell Mooney in a second year. He'll take the lid off defenses. We have the tight ends. We have David Montgomery. And we're giving Andy Dalton probably the best defense he's ever played with. And actually, to be honest with you, the way the Bears' offensive line is coming together, we're probably giving him one of the best offensive lines he's ever played with. Let's give him a chance. I'm way more positive about next year. With a bit of perspective and thinking about it, I am way more positive going into next year. And I really think with competent quarterback play and with Andy Dalton just being decent, like a decent starter, I really think we have a chance going into next year. And I think some of the narratives, about Andy Dalton and the Bears right now are really unfair. New podcast come on Monday.